Hi, welcome to Ikate's Crossing as we continue with the Major Arcana meditations. So let's separate our Major Arcana. Okay, let's separate. So just so you know what I'm actually doing. So what I'm doing is I'm actually separating the Major Arcana, and as we go through, we're going to have a look at the as we go through, we're going to actually have a look at a card, Major Arcana card, that we're going to use for meditation. So I'm going to read you a little bit of, we're going to look at the things that are connected to it. Okay, the correspondence as well. I'm going to have a look at some of the correspondence with it as well, maybe. Have a little bit of a look-see there. But I also want to look a little bit deeper at the card itself, the story behind the card a little bit as well. So you've got something to sort of reflect on. Now you notice with the Native American cards that the Major Arcana actually have the numbers on them, while the Minor Arcana actually have words. So it's quite interesting there. So it just gives me a second to sort of go through them all. Just check to make sure that I've got them. So we only want the Major Arcana for this meditation series that I'm doing. Now the reason why I've had to separate them is because I just realised that I used them for a reading before. So I need to separate them. Right, okay, so let's put them aside, the Minor Arcana. So let's have a look. What Major Arcana are we going to reflect on? Now, we've already reflected on death and the Fool, which is quite interesting. So let's continue this exploration. Oh, okay, we're going to look at Justice here, number 11. So justice for me. So what does justice mean? Equilibrium, balance, the truth of the situation, those sort of aspects there. So let's have a look here. I'll get truth, equilibrium, balance, justice, consequences of any actions taken. All those things come into play. So we get here, listen to this, justice, excerpts from the great law of peace. Okay, so here's two. Now this is done by Star Spider Woman. It's an unpublished notes. Now Star Spider Woman is the creator of the deck, Kentucky Mountain Shawnee. Right, so she says, with the Sachem of the Great League, the tree of great peace is planted. It is planted in the territory of the Fire Keepers. You who are the caretakers of the internal flame. The tree is called Tisnera Tasikawa, the great white pine. Under its shade is spread the soft feather-like. You have to excuse my pronunciations. I am not Shawnee. Okay, so I'm not Native American. I'm not from the people. So just wanted to make that very clear. Even though this is the first tarot deck I was connected to and felt very drawn, so it could be a past life connection. Okay, could be a past life connection, which, it is a past life connection, which I'm connected to. So it seems really important. Okay, under its shade is spread the soft feather-like down of the globe thistle. Here sits the Sachem. Here will be transacted all the business of the League of the Five Nations. The roots of the great tree spread in the four cardinal directions, to the north, to the east, to the west, to the south. Their nature is peace and strength, and if a person or a nation outside of the League acknowledges and obeys the law of the great peace, Kayan Narikoa, they may follow the roots to the source. They will be welcomed in the shelter of the great white pine if their minds are unclouded and their hearts true, and if they vow obedience to the council wishes. Okay, so let's have a look at the meditation aspect of it, which is what we want to do first. Okay, so we're looking at justice. Okay, the scent is actually pine. Okay, so any sort of pine scents. Color is actually deep red. The meditation is, I live by the threefold law. Your affirmation is, I am worthy of the respect of my peers, for I walk with a good heart. Okay, your meditation is, I live by the threefold law. Okay, that's what this card's about. That's what justice is about. You're meditating on, I live by the threefold law. Your affirmation, I am worthy of the respect of my peers, for I walk with a good heart. I live by the threefold law. Okay, I live by the threefold law. I want to have a look at something else. Okay, Native American symbology for the Justice card. Okay, your totem animal is snake. Okay, so snake could be an animal, and it's headdress with ceremony. Okay, that's symbology is headdress. But your animal is snake. That's interesting. Plant, white pine. We said stone was ruby. Tool of focus is acoustic. You know, like in a coup, like when you were in a coup. Okay, musical key. A sharp minor, B flat minor. Shamanic journey, first judgment by one's peers. Oh, that's interesting. Meditation point. Let's have a look. Meditation point is your throat chakra. It's interesting. And so the colour is blue. Okay. I'm not interested in any of that stuff at the moment, so I'll do that separately, because that comes from other cultures. I just want to do the sort of like the Native Americans one. Okay, so that's interesting. So white pine, ruby, acoustic. Music was A sharp minor, B flat minor if you're into music. Shamanic journey is first judgment by one's peers. The meditation point, as I said, was throat chakra, so the colour is blue. Okay, so that's interesting there. Okay, so I just want to write, there's a whole lot of information. I don't know how much information you want me to go into in regards to okay, let's have a look. Justice classically portrayed as a seated woman with scales in her left hand and upraised sword in her right. We know that's normally the blindfolded figure of Justice is based on the Greek Titaness Themis. She was one of the planetary guardians of Zeus, protecting him from his father Cronus. She had the gift of prophecy and succeeded Mother Earth at Delphi. She later resigned the shrine, however, in Apollo's favour. Besides Themis, Justice was also equated with Astrea, Virgo, and even with Athena, who was worshipped as a deity of dispassionate justice and as the mistress of war, which would coincide with both the scales and the sword Justice carries. Her Egyptian counterpart is the feminine equivalent of Thoth and Mat. Okay, so that's interesting, isn't it? Okay, in either Greek or Egyptian form, Justice was concerned with weighing truth to the ancients as to us, and truth was a rare and precious commodity that could be measured, even if one had to use a feather or counterweight. But when two differing societies meet and clash, then what in truth is truth? Out of the American Heritage Book of Indians comes an account of a cruelty of enforcing one truth over another. Old Niels Gustafson, a Dutch colonial, told a story in 1749 when he was 91. He was walking with a Delaware native and they encountered a red-spotted snake on the road. Niles got a stick in order to kill it, while the native begged him to spare the creature, which was his totem. Niels killed the snake in the native's presence when he realized it was his companion's deity. Because thou believest in it, he said, I think myself obliged to kill it. Oh God. Haimayo's storm has a more philosophical and more gentle way of telling about truth's relativity. If you and I were sitting in a circle of people on the prairie, and if I were them to place a painted drum or an eagle feather in the middle of the circle, each of us would perceive these objects differently. Our vision of them would vary according to our individual positions in the circle, each of which would be unique. If the thing I were to place within our circle should be an abstraction, such as an idea or feeling or a philosophy, our perception of it would be even more complicated than if the object had been a tangible thing. The perception of any object, either tangible or abstract, is ultimately made 1,000 times more complicated whenever it is viewed within the circle of an entire people as a whole. In 1972. Okay, let's take a minute and just take a breath for a second as we reflect on what was just said. Just take a moment to reflect on that. Let's just take a breath before I continue. Okay, let's just take that breath. You can pause the video here if you need a little bit longer. Okay, just pause the video if you need a little bit longer. Okay, so let's have a look. What's next? Okay, we're talking about Crowley's deck, right? With the Thoth. He does not call this card Justice. In keeping with the fact and fantasy of human interaction and historical documentation, he renames it Adjustment. Okay, he points out that justice has only a purely human and therefore relative sense, and that nature is not just theologically or ethically. Nature is exact. Equilibrium acts and demands exact and precise satisfaction. The initiates, peers, and teachers evaluate the goodness of her heart, her intent, and so on, and thus whether she is worthy to proceed. In terms of Eastern philosophy, justice represents the duality of dharma, works, and the karma, the results of works. Every form of energy, positive and negative, must be directed and applied with integrity to the full satisfaction of its destiny. For example, sorry, just take a minute to breathe. For example, if words have power, an unfulfilled promise becomes a curse. Take the 370 ratified treaties made between the U.S. with the Native American nations. In each of the treaties, in an ecological catchphrase, a promise or a curse. The treaty would be honoured, it was sworn, until the grass no longer grows and the rivers cease to flow. In the present ecological dilemma, the grass is withering and the rivers are not flowing, at least not in a life-sustaining way, and not one of the 370 treaties has been honoured by the government. To case, justice is the card of karma to Crowley. Again, it is the act of adjustment, such as marriage agreements and treaties, and to wait. It is either equity, rightness, probity, and the triumph of the dissenting side, or law, legal complications, bigotry, bias, and excessive severity. Severity and justice, order and chaos, militant might and intelligence. They are opposites from one perspective, complements from another. Justice to the nations of Turtle Island before the white invasion was far different from what is called justice today. Ostracism was the common penalty, as imprisonment is today. If a person stole from a member of his tribe, he was generally required to compensate the victim. In a case of a wrongful death, The perpetrator could be made a slave of the victim's dependents to make up for the loss of their livelihood. In the case of rape, castration was a possible punishment. If a man committed the most heinous crime imaginable to Native Americans, if he harmed a child, it is quite likely that he would have been turned over to the mothers of the tribe to be tortured to death. All in all, the Native American belief is similar, it's not the same, it's similar to the Wiccan threefold law. It's not the same as, it's similar to the Wiccan threefold law. If you harm someone, you will have it come back to you at least threefold. On the other hand, if you do good, it will be returned to you threefold. Inherent in the Native American concept of justice is the law of cause and effect. If you throw a stone in a still pond, you are responsible not only for the stone and the splash it made, but also for the ripples, the waves, and all that gets wet in their path. On justice, a member of a Northwestern Council of Elders stands dressed in ceremonial robe, a speaker's staff in his hand. The ceremonial, highly decorated speaker's staff was brought to council by an important member. It was passed around during the discussion, and no one could speak until the staff was in his hands. The elder holds a small totem effigy, a mark of personal prestige. The council sits in a council lodge that contains 2 totem poles representing the tribal ancestral lineage. Usually by the time a man reached the age of 40, he no longer went to war, but became a member of the Council of Elders. Those who were known as great peacemakers were invariably asked to arbitrate disputes. Serious questions that faced the entire band or nation were decided on in council. The Iroquois leaders of 5 nations included the Mohawk, Oneida, Seneca, Cayuga, and Onondaga. The founders of the United States, including Benjamin Franklin, were aware of the Great Law and it inspired the Constitution of the United States. The Seneca today think it's ironic that this great patriarchy was patterned after laws laid down originally by the Iroquois grandmothers. The other Iroquoian-speaking people, the Cherokee, adopted their constitution in 1817, patterning it after the U.S. government structure, which in turn had been patterned after that of the Iroquois. Councils were pan-Native American. The Delaware Big House was a large rectangular log structure with 1 door to the west and 1 to the east, 12 faces carved on the walls and central post, and 2 fires, 1 east and 1 west of the central post. The recital of individual visions was prominent. It is a loss that this structure and its ceremonies are no longer with us, for the prayers were for the benefit of everyone and for future time. The quasi-democratic council rule is anathema to the popular picture of the barbaric, bloodthirsty savage that has been fed to us by Hollywood and historians alike. The decision to war or not to war was made in council, and even so, war was seldom a tribal or national affair. It was more an individual endeavour, and forays were usually carried out in singularly or in small groups. It wasn't until the white man came that armies and death, instead of personal individual honour, were stressed as tools and objectives. The woman had as much a voice in the decision as the men. Though a male rather than a female figure is on the justice card of the Native American tarot, the matriarchal power is not lost. Justice evokes contemplation of the exacting and cyclical payback of both the natural and supernatural universe. Every hillside, every valley, Every plain and grove has been hollowed by some sad or happy event in days long vanished, and at eventide they grow shadowy with returning spirits. And when the memory of my tribe shall have become a myth among the white man, these shores will swarm with the invisible dead of my tribe. And when your children's children think themselves alone in the field, the store, the shop upon the highway, or alone in the silence of the pathless woods, they will not be alone. At night, when the streets of your cities and villages are silent, and you think them deserted, they will throng, and the returning host that once filled them with still love, this beautiful land, the white man will never be alone. Chief Seattle, Salish, Sunbear, 1976. So that's really interesting when you look at the story and the history of why this card was created. Interesting thoughts. All about consequences of any actions taken. Interesting. The truth, the perspective, the blindness, the judgment of the justice. Trying to find a sense of equilibrium, balance within this journey. The truth of it all. Oh, there's some real things to think about here. Now, I do want to include, as we're here, let's take a moment to sort of take a breath. And let's grab, there we go, the Native American Oracle deck, Oracle card. Let's have a look. What card have we got with the truth? Let's have a look. What card's going to come out with justice? Oh, let's have a look as we look. Reflect. Okay, interesting here. Card number 33. Was good when we had the title, when they did the titles on the cards. I wish I had still had that deck. Okay, card number 33. Let's have a look. No, I don't want the Spanish. Okay, 33. The Shaman. Liberty. The shaman walks between worlds, moving with ease between the visible and invisible worlds, and thus sees connections. Via his journey to spirits, he has experienced many things, suffered greatly, and learnt much. His wisdom and dedication allow him to communicate with spirit on the behalf of others and bring healing to a people or an individual. He leads the living along a path of personal control that leads to true freedom and accompanies the dead to the next path, freedom from the physical world. So the message becomes true freedom comes through self-knowledge and discipline, an understanding of the world, and a compassion or service for others. So the key words are liberty, freedom, ability, guidance, devotion, discipline, sacrifice, and suffering for a greater good. And the time is dependent on the seeker's will. You're thinking about time. Okay, there is a spread in here called this, the spread of this. Oh, okay. The spread of the sacred space. Oh, we might do that spread later. Okay. Okay, so anyway, so what I was talking about, the shaman with liberty. Okay, so when we're thinking about consequences of consequences of any actions that we take, and we have that sense of liberty, that freedom. That's interesting. To walk between the worlds, to have that find of having our truth balanced out. Ooh, it sort of all ties in when you think about it. Okay, so let's take a minute to breathe, to contemplate, to reflect on the message that's been shared with you today as you connect with your spirit to the great mystery, spirit guides. As we connect to the great mystery, Okay, so that's it from me. Don't forget, check the links down below. Check the links on my channel. Like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you know when the next video will be uploaded. Take care. Blessed be.